back to the channel. In the last video, I designed the transmission crossmember for the Charger, and I just heard it finish printing. So I designed the whole thing, but I was only able to print half of it. And man, look at that. There we go. So what happened was I had to use some infill, and I had to do it this way because it has a 2-inch drop on it. So let's pull this off, and I'll break all the infill material off, and then we could go to the shop, put it up there, and it should work. So what I want to do is I need to find a place that either could laser cut this out of 1/4-inch steel and then bend it, or I may end up just having, for the time being, just cut 1/4-inch plate with a plasma CNC or a laser CNC, and then just weld it together. And then later on I could find a company that can bend this, because I would rather have a bent piece of metal. And I am going to put some bracing, some triangles across the bottom, just to give it a little bit more additional bracing. And I also want to tie it into the outer frame rails like it is on the Trackhawk. I think the Trackhawks is actually tied into the outer frame rails because that bracket is so tall. Since this one has a 2-inch drop, I don't think it'll deflect as much as that one. But if I do still tie it into that outer frame rail, it really doesn't matter. It's just really strapped. So let's go down to the shop, the body shop, test fit this. And this really will tell me what I need to know on the passenger side. If this works, the driver side is just gonna be wherever I'm gonna put it. So I'm just gonna bolt it to this and then weld it onto the new tranny tunnel that I made. So let's get down there, start fabricating the tranny tunnel, and kind of go from there. Test fit the 3D printed crossmember, and there were a few adjustments. What I actually did end up doing was moving the transmission transfer case over to the passenger side a little bit, because if you look on the Hellcats and the Charger Hellcats, it is more, the drive shaft is more on the passenger side than it is on the driver's side. Also, I edited my dimensions, so I need to move this forward 23 millimeters. I was just using a ruler, so this kind of helped out. Up here, the passenger and driver side mount is actually different bolt spacing, so that one has to just go up 3 mil, and then these holes just have to be moved. So I have all that. I could edit, reprint it, and then test it out one more time before I actually make it out of metal, which will be nice to have that thing bolted in there. So the transmission crossmember is now 100% lined up. I had to do 2 revisions. So what I did with the first one was I relied on the original Hellcat transmission crossmember for a lot of the dimensions, except for the height dimension. So after I printed it, I saw or noticed that a lot of the holes, especially on this side, they aren't the same as the other side. So the other side lined up. This side I had to change by 3 mil. Then I had to move this back, I think 22 mil, and then over like 20 mil. So now everything is good. I have the transmission pretty much exactly where it would be in a Hellcat. So on Hellcats, Scat Packs, Dodge, to get their transmission, to get their drive shaft angle, they have the transmission more prioritized towards the passenger side. So that gives you that angle. So that's exactly what I did. And since I'm using a 1-piece drive shaft, I want to keep that in the same orientation. So all I really had to worry about was back here, this tab right here on the carrier bearing bracket. I didn't want the drive shaft to hit that. And I think I'm going to be good, because if you look all the way down from this bracket right here, it's the diff is over there. So I think we'll be okay on that. But I'm just really glad that I have, sorry for the whole camera angle thing because we're upside down in the car, but I'm just glad that the transmission crossmember is now good to go. And I only printed half of it because my 3D printer is only 400 mil. So, and then this side really doesn't matter. I just made it long enough, or as long as the Trackhawk one. So then I don't have to worry about it, because it's gonna go and mount somewhere over here regardless, so it won't interfere with the drive shaft or anything like that. So we'll just kind of continue to do that and we should be good to go. But I need to find a company to actually bend this out of 1/4-inch steel, actually CNC plasma cut it or laser cut it and then bend it out of 1/4-inch steel. And then we could go from there, and then I could have the transmission crossmember done. So now that I have verified that the transmission crossmember I designed fits in there, lines up, and works, the next thing I was going to do was build the transmission or transfer case tunnel / transmission tunnel and the drive shaft tunnel. But the issue with that is at the end of the day, I don't 100% know where the front drive shaft's gonna be. I have a pretty good idea. I know that the diff, it comes out pretty much where that steering shaft comes out, and I just don't 100% know. So I don't wanna go building all that sheet metal. I did tack one piece of sheet metal in around the transfer case, and I think I'll leave that because that's pretty much gonna be fine. But boxing all that in, and then having to then later on go back, then put a drive shaft tunnel in there, and then ending up having to cut a bunch of stuff out is something I don't want to do. So what I'm going to end up doing is this thing needs to be blocked out. But before I block it out, I need to fill a bunch of the pinholes from the body filler and then block it out. So I'm going to do that. Then in the next video, I'm going to build the front, build the front subframe. So I need to get the Trackhawk front diff in there. I need to get all the Trackhawk suspension on here in the front. So I could bolt the diff in, bolt the drive shaft on, and get this thing 100%, you know, so I know 100% where everything's gonna be. So when I bolt the drive shaft in there, then I could come back, finish up building this whole transmission tunnel on this side. The other side, I just need to put like a little bubble, and once that's all done, you know, we're gonna be able to go back and prime this again. I was just gonna prime this thing twice, but this time I'm gonna block this thing in 80 grit. So then I'm gonna prime it 180, prime it 320. So I'll have to prime it 3 times. Actually 2 more times because I already primed it once. So what I'm gonna do now, since I'm not gonna build the tranny tunnel without knowing a bunch of variables, I'm going to actually fill in all these pinholes, and there isn't too many, but let me see if I can catch some of them. So you can barely see them. They're right there. And that's just from the body filler. The body filler is really thick. When you sand it, it has little pinholes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix up some icing and just fill those in, then guide coat the car, and then block it out. The reason you wanna do it before you block the car out is you don't wanna be taking off extra material. So when you do it first, it just really works very well. So let's do that, get this thing 100% blocked out and ready for the next coat of primer, the next stage on the outside of the body. Also this week I need to make the roof, or get the roof started and probably filled in with a bunch of body filler and shaped. But yeah, let's get this whole outside skin ready to go because I need that done before I start making the roof, because I need this rail right here 100% perfect for the mold. So Just finished blocking the Charger out with 80 grit, and you can see where the sanding scratches it filled from the 40 grit is. And if you look, there's some right there. You can see the sanding scratches. So really, that's all the primer is doing is filling in those sanding scratches. When I prime it again, so I'm gonna prime it 2 more times. I was only gonna prime it twice, but then I decided to hit it with 80 grit. So next time I sand this, I'll do it in 180, then prime it again, then 320. But when I 180 it, it'll look very similar to this. You'll see all these sanding scratches. Even though the 80 grit looks very, very smooth, I just love how smooth this top piece is for the hatch now. I can't wait till the roof is that smooth. And the back came all together with the hatch and everything. And you can see all those sanding scratches. And then, let's see, I still need to sand this, but it's not as important because it's under the glass. But all these little dots right here were pinholes that I filled. If you remember, I filled them with icing. So it's a lot easier to fill them with icing before you go ahead and sand it. Now I shouldn't have to worry about any more pinholes because they're filled. So I can't wait to see this thing back in primer. But like I said, I want to do some stuff to the floor in the next video, and I am really glad that I got that tranny crossmember bracket designed and made, or designed and 3D printed. I still need to find somebody to laser cut it and bend it. But in here, once I have the front subframe made, that means I could finish up this tranny tunnel, and by that time, I should be able to paint it because I'm gonna finish blocking this out tomorrow as well. We'll see what happens. I should be able to finish blocking this out tomorrow. I want to really work on the front subframe so I can get the diff and the drive shaft and all that stuff mounted. But if I can finish blocking this out tomorrow, I might be able to also prime it tomorrow night. And then if I can prime it tomorrow night, then I'll let it sit for a couple days to a week. And then I could work on other stuff and then come back 180 it and then prime it again and then 320 it. So getting very close to being able to paint the car. It's a lot of steps, but at the end of the day, they're all worth it because if you guys remember how the primer looked before, it just wasn't very smooth. I also forgot to do the door handles, so I need to 80 grit those, but it wasn't very smooth. And now when you look at it, this light is just annoying, but you can just see how it looks so smooth. I mean, everything is just really, really nice and smooth, and it just gets better and better as you go up the grits. So the best thing to do is just take the time and just go through your grits and just prime it a couple times, which if you find anything in 80 grit, it's a lot nicer because then you can go back and put icing on it as long as it's not too big. We already did all the body work prior, but there was a few spots where I put icing around here. I needed to feather it out, and also back here by the quarter, I had to feather this out as well because it was kind of showing. So because that edge. So now that it's all sanded, it's all good to go. And man, look how smooth these quarter panels are. It's just really nice. And my camera, I was time-lapsing it. I don't know how long it time-lapsed because I guess you guys will see the time-lapse before I'm talking about it, but it just died. So hopefully I got enough time-lapse on the sanding because, I mean, it should have just got the whole thing. I just really wasn't paying attention to it. And I started at like 9 this morning, and now it's 5 p.m. I just finished. So it takes a long time to get this stuff done. And another thing I don't like to do, a lot of people use DAs. I've tried it. It doesn't get the panel as smooth as using the blocks. It's a lot faster, but it doesn't get it as smooth because even the interface pad is meant for after it's already smooth. And then if you just kind of guide coat it and go and just get the guide coat off, you're still not leveling it out. It's pretty level, but that's why when you look at cars and they're smooth, but they have that little wave to them. That's the reason. So I did buy this block. It's I think it's made out of fiberglass. It's really straight. And what I did, you guys could see in the time lapse, I started off with this to kind of see where I need it to be, and try to get, you know, once you get a first sand on it and it starts kind of digging into that primer, it kind of shows you where the low spots are, where the high spots are, and then you just have to, you know, really take it down. Once I got done with that, you know, I alternated between these depending on the angle, and then I also had a piece of, you know, 80 grit that I used for, you know, around the edges and around really tight spots to just get in there, get it all nice and sanded, and just kind of go with the contours. So you don't really want to press hard. A lot of people, when I see them sanding and doing body work, they're actually pressing so hard it deflects the panel. So let's say I was sanding Josh's trunk on his Honda, and as you know, if you go let the sandpaper do the work, which is why it took so long, it doesn't deflect the panel. But if you start pressing on it to get done quicker, you can see how the pan. Let's go to a shiny spot. Where's a shiny spot on Josh's trunk? So you can see that when you press, and I don't really want to sand Josh's trunk, but he's going to sand it eventually. So it just deflects it. So when you're pressing, you're almost digging into it. Then it doesn't deflect the panel, and it makes a very, very straight panel. So I don't know, that's how I do it. It's probably, there's, you know, people are gonna say there's a bunch of other ways to do it, but I've painted a bunch of different cars, and I do that every time. I tried, so I've painted a bunch of cars that weren't mine as well, and you know, just learning and practicing and doing stuff like that. I've tried it different ways, pressing really hard, deflecting the panel. You can see the waves, using a DA, just DAing the primer off of there. To get it smooth. I mean, it does get it smooth, but you still, it's a small area that it's sanding. So this is how I do it. It takes a lot longer than it would the other way. I kind of want to explain how I do it, why I do it, just so you guys, you know, if you guys want to paint a car, it gives you kind of some insight what you could do that'll get you really good results, what you could do to get okay results, which it depends on what kind of car you're painting. Obviously, I want this car to look super, super nice and super straight, but with all the time and effort I spent in lining all the panels up and getting the door gaps. But that's it. That's all I'm gonna say for this video. We'll get the subframe, or hopefully get the subframe together on, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday's video. We'll see what happens. I really need to get that diff in there, so I think it's gonna be a really big leap forward. Then I could pretty much get everything with the tranny tunnel finished up, get this thing ready for paint. So if you like these videos, make sure you click the subscribe button, thumbs up, throw a comment below. As always, see you guys next time.